The original quills were stripped quills from a feather, and what I have here is a very light barred ginger, which is very pretty. And along the side over here, where the spade hackle is, I found a feather that's got some real nice barring in it, and I like that. So I like to cut this where, and this is pretty visible, where the web line is less than half the length of the complete fiber, so I can come way down in this. I protect my spade hackle because there's not much of it on a cape. Then I just take some of the fibers, get the volume of material that I want, like this. This is lighter, so it doesn't look like quite as much, but that's plenty. How do we decide? I always kind of go by the hook shank diameter. And then I want this to extend to the back of the bend from the front of the eye, so that's my tie-in point. Once I have this point, I don't want the underbody to go any farther forward than where the halfway point of the hook shank is. I put the fibers down and actually below the hook shank and kind of tie it on the side like this. The length looks good, so the second wrap of thread pulls it up to the top of the hook like that. That works for me. Now the stripped quill could come from this light ginger neck, and I think the quill would end up looking almost white. It's possible we could go up in here. Yeah, there's a real pretty feather right here, and it's a very large feather, and that has more ginger in it. We'll pull it out and go ahead and do it that way. Sometimes on these, depending on the thickness of the feather, and you can see I could use some of this for tailing, so sad day on that. What I'm going to do is just stroke the fibers down like this, and then I just strip them all off for the length that I need. Now this is a pretty thick quill down here, and I think I want it to end up with that darker color. It's going to start out pretty light. We just go down here, and then I usually clip so there's just a few fibers left, so that when I tie the quill in with the next adjacent wrap of thread and move forward, all the little bits of fibers and the stuff that's left that was in the tail help to taper the body. Now this is a spot that I'm pretty mixed about often, but I'm going to take just one drop of cement, try to get just one, there we go, and put it on the thread here. This will make the quill shinier, and it'll also make everything stick a little. Sometimes I put the head cement on after I tie the quill. I think first is okay too. And then the first wrap of quill is against where the tail was. We want to make sure we avoid the point of the hook. And then we just wrap adjacent wraps of quill like we would thread or anything else forward. This is an older traditional fly, but I love them. And as soon as our body is done, we're to the halfway point. I'll make one more wrap. You can see it push the head cement forward. That means it's all the way under there. You can also see that, and then I tie it off here, and I wrap my thread back 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps against that body, and you can see there's a beautiful segment in that just because it's a quill, and they naturally do that. I actually like that color a lot. A little bit of head cement might have darkened it up, and I didn't want any head cement in my tail. It would wick up in there and cause it to stick together. Now we're going to move our thread forward to the back of the head. Remember, we have 5 or 6 wraps of thread in there. And the traditional pattern like this calls for a blue dun wing. This is a hen neck that has some nice feathers in it. I'm going to pick the feathers because I know what I want, and then I'll show you how I decided it. Again, we've got a size 14 fly. I pull out 2 feathers that are the same size, and my guideline is it should fill the gap of the hook like this. Now these are wider than the gap, you'll say, true enough, But see all the long stringy stuff that's in here? I don't like that so much, and I know some of it's going to disappear and it'll lose some of its shape. Put the tips together, and that's why I choose a wider feather, and even them up. Can slide in between our thumb and index finger a little bit, and then I want them to fill the gap. So I put them on top of the hook shank like this, back even with the back of the bend, hold them, and I cut straight up using the front of the eye as a guide. And then I just pull out the little fluffy stuff or flick these, doesn't make any difference. You can see they separate a bit. One is going to go on one side of the hook shank and the other on the other side. Angle them down, capture them, make a second wrap, and then pull back and up and pull the material up like this so it's on top of the hook, and wind thread back until we're back to that halfway point. That's where we want the wings to be mounted. That'll give us about the right length. Looks like I can use one more wrap. Now what I do is pull them forward with my right hand, put a base of thread right at the base, that'll stand them up. Then I put my index finger of my right hand under the eye of the hook, index fingernail of the left hand pushes against these wings, and that divides them, crimps the material. That's good enough. I'm going to make a few more wraps back, right to where my quill body is. If I wrap the quill body a bit far to the front, I can just wrap thread back onto the quill. Then we have our nice barred ginger. So we've got the tail, the body, and the hackle out of this. It's a size 14 hook, so we need a size 14 hackle. When the hackle, the wing, and the proportions are right on this pattern, it will float properly